So Taylor Swift is going on tour for the first time in 4 or 5 years. And of course, she's a massive, mega superstar, A-list celebrity. And it was going to be a giant horde of people who wanted to buy the tickets the minute they go on presale. And so what happened was disturbing. Ticketmaster is like the main place you'd go to get these tickets. We'll get into more on Ticketmaster in a second because they're a monopoly and they're horrendous. And the system crashed. The system crashed because of the giant flow of Taylor Swift fans who were trying to get the tickets. So it sort of ruined the rollout of her new tour. So now that has led to Taylor Swift fans to kind of get political and get involved and research, well, what the fuck is going on? Why is Ticketmaster so bad? Well, the answer is they're a monopoly. And so when you're a monopoly, you buy up the competition, you have the overwhelming majority of the market, if not the entire market, held captive. And then when you do that, service becomes irrelevant. If you're the only game in town, you can have the shittiest service imaginable, but where the fuck else is anybody going to go? They have nowhere else to go. They have to come to you. So there are all these downsides to it. So now, having said all that, let's dive into Ticketmaster. There's this great video from More Perfect Union about Ticketmaster, which explains just how bad they are. Okay, then we'll get into Taylor Swift and she responded and all that stuff. So let's watch.
A few weeks back, Bruce Springsteen fans were outraged to find that ticket prices for his current tour were as high as $5,000.
Springsteen's fans have never felt cheated until now.
$5,000 a piece?
$5,000.
Would you really pay $5,000 to go see your favorite band?
No.
I can't do that.
That's a bit much.
We can thank a predatory new business practice for that. It was introduced by Ticketmaster, and they call it dynamic pricing. It's an experimental technique, and it's pissed off everyone, from fans to venues to performers themselves, including the boss. So, how can Ticketmaster get away with it? Because they are the bullies of the music industry playground. Ticketmaster and Live Nation, which is the same company, but we'll get to that later, can basically do whatever they want because they have seized control over every aspect of the live music industry by creating a monopoly. This ticketing cartel has the power to destroy venues and artists who refuse to work with them. They even have their own resale platform, and they encourage and incentivize ticket resellers to gouge fans. All of these exploitative practices make Ticketmaster execs very, very rich. Live Nation CEO Michael Rapino made $70.6 million in 2017. That's one of the largest CEO pay packages ever. But here's the twist. This entire monopoly was helped along and enabled by our elected leaders. So how do we get to a point where the people in charge of preventing monopolies are enabling monopolies? And more importantly, how can we take back power from Ticketmaster and their monopolistic brethren? Let's take a look. I'm Cory Doctorow, and this is The Classroom from More Perfect Union. I'm going to have to give you a brief history lesson on antitrust law. That's the government's toolbox for fighting monopolies. I wrote a whole book about it. It's called Choke Point Capitalism, and I wrote it with my friend Rebecca Giblin. Now, the glory years of antitrust were right after FDR's New Deal. The government saw...
What a surprise. One of the best, if not the best president in U.S. history did good shit.
That monopolies weakened worker power, and so they set to breaking up these giant corporations and to preventing future monopolies from forming. Back then, monopolies were viewed as a threat to the very idea of democratic citizenship. Then in the 1970s, a conservative legal scholar named Robert Bork and his pals at the University of Chicago School of Economics started spreading a very different view of antitrust. They said, forget about all that high-minded crap about democracy and citizenship. Instead, anti-monopoly regulators should limit themselves to thinking about consumer welfare. Basically, they focused on short-term goals like lowering prices rather than promoting competition in and of itself, and most importantly, preventing the gross power abuses of monopolies. Antitrust enforcement fell by the wayside as a priority. The Democratic Party platform didn't even mention antitrust once between 1992 and 2016. This is what allowed for the growth of monopolies in every industry: meatpacking, tech, banking, finance, eyeglasses, cheerleading, beer, and in 2010, the music industry. For 15 years prior to their merger, Ticketmaster was the dominant provider of ticketing services in America, controlling 80% of the market. Live Nation was the largest concert promoter in America. They controlled America's biggest concert venues and the artists themselves. They managed 200 major artists from Miley to Willie. And Live Nation was Ticketmaster's #1 customer. Live Nation used Ticketmaster to sell tickets for venues and artists that Live Nation managed. But in 2007, Live Nation thought, hey, maybe we should build our own ticketing platform. Ticketmaster did not like that, and so just 2 years later, Live Nation and Ticketmaster announced a merger. Which sounds like a clear antitrust problem. Isn't someone supposed to be on top of that? At the time, the Obama DOJ's top antitrust cop was Christine Varney, who said, I understand that consolidation has been going on in the industry for some time. Those are meaningful concerns, but many of them are not antitrust concerns. So there you go. The two most powerful companies in the live music industry join forces, and it's not an antitrust concern. They were slapped with a few restrictions when they merged. A few. Antitrust mostly relies on two kinds of remedy, structural and conduct. Structural remedies are about actually breaking up parts of a giant consolidated empire. Conduct remedies are about changing behavior, regulating anti-competitive business practices, and regulating how giant companies wield their power. Conduct remedies are pretty ineffective because they're really hard to actually enforce. The consent decree that the Ticketmaster Live Nation corporate empire got was a mix of structural and conduct remedies, but essentially it all boiled down to a pinky swear. Live Nation had to promise that they wouldn't use their power over events and venues to grow their ticketing dominance. The combined company violated their consent.
I can't, man. It's so frustrating. It's so fucking infuriating. I mean, this reminds me of like Hillary Clinton in the debate with Bernie in 2016 where she says, and I went down to Wall Street and I told them to cut it out. It's like, that's not going to do Dickie McGee's axe. Of course it's not going to do it. So this was the U.S. government's brilliant answer to a monopoly forming right under their noses? It was like, all right, but you guys got to promise you're not going to do any bad things, bro. Like, what? Oh my God.
Decree with impunity because, like a playground bully, they had created a culture of fear where no one else in the live music industry would speak out against them. When we interviewed people for our book, we always gave them the option not to be named, but almost nobody took us up on it, except for those people we spoke to about Live Nation. In most cases, those sources were anxious about even speaking off the record. There's no conduct remedy that can address that kind of power. Structural remedies are more effective because they force monopolies to break off portions of their power. Ticketmaster was forced to sell portions of their empire to much smaller companies, but it was barely a dent. Now, 12 years later, we're seeing a company whose power is so vast that they could sell $5,000 tickets to see the guy who sings, poor men want to be rich men want to be king, and the king ain't satisfied till he rules everything. We do mean everything. They've also dominated the ticket resale business. They have their own resale software. It's called Trade Desk, and in 2018, an investigation revealed that Ticketmaster had encouraged and incentivized resellers to set enormously high ticket resale prices. Ticketmaster loves resales for one simple reason. They get to charge their service fees twice, and those resales net them a second, more lucrative fee on the same product, the one they've already sold once. Live music isn't the only creative industry that has fallen prey to giant monopolies. Just 3 massive conglomerates own the major labels and publishers that control the world's music. Those labels design the streaming industry, which is dominated by Spotify, which itself was partially owned by those 3 same labels. Now that Disney owns 21st Century Fox, just one company controls 35% of the US box office. The publishing industry is controlled by 5 big companies. That number was 6 when we started writing our book, and if they get their way, it'll soon be 4. That's just wildly quick consolidation. Yes, it's always been hard to be an artist, but the difference today is that corporations are extracting the maximum capital from artist labor, and they're not sharing it anymore. We creative workers, we know that our music, movies, and other culture markets are in trouble. In the past, we were told to rely on copyright if we were going to hold on to our rights and our values. But copyright does nothing to solve a problem like Ticketmaster. Giving us more copyright in these monopolized markets is like giving more lunch money to your kid who's getting his lunch money taken off him by bullies every day. No matter how much money you give him, the bullies are going to take that money every day too. And the problem isn't just that artists are getting ripped off, and it's not just that fans and small business owners are getting ripped off. It's that monopoly threatens the overall health of our democracy itself. Now, I've got good news. The Biden administration took a strong stance against monopoly power. Remember when we were talking about the prevalence of Bork and that theory of antitrust that said we shouldn't do anything unless prices are going up? This administration came out against that sort of thinking, and they handed down an executive order that charged the DOJ to police monopolies and protect consumer autonomy and privacy. That's an admission that monopolies are about more than just prices. If they're serious about this, the Ticketmaster monopoly has to be on the DOJ's agenda. We need to break up the bullies. Ticketmaster bullies venues into not working with their competitors. They bully smaller artists by denying them management. They bully big artists by controlling their ticket prices and letting their fans down. And they bully customers into paying exorbitant prices for tickets, not only by enabling resellers, but by collecting massive fees on every ticket those resellers sell. All of this amounts to an environment where competition has been totally removed from the live music ecosystem, making it worse for everyone except Ticketmaster and Live Nation executives, who are making millions of dollars a year. We have to act now. Biden's DOJ should take up and review this case due to Ticketmaster's continued violation of their consent decree. We need to unwind this monopoly and break them up.
So about a week after this video came out, the Biden administration did announce they're going after Ticketmaster, which is phenomenal news. Now, this video also, by the way, came out before the whole Taylor Swift fiasco. So now let me show you a little bit about that. So this is in New York Magazine. Taylor Swift's Ticketmaster disaster keeps getting worse. This was a tough week for Swifties. On Tuesday, Taylor Swift fans were finally able to buy pre-sale tickets for the singer's 2023 Eras Tour. Well, almost. Millions of Swifties swarmed Live Nation's Ticketmaster, hoping to snag tickets to the singer's first tour in more than 5 years, only to be met by all sorts of issues. From hours-long waits and site outages to technical glitches and outrageously high ticket prices. To make matters worse, on Thursday, Ticketmaster announced that it would be canceling the general sale entirely. Swifties were not impressed. So here's some tweets from Taylor Swift fans. Ticketmaster will betray you on the chalkboard and Taylor Swift next to it. Did the Ticketmaster bruise paint you blue? Just between us, how long were you in that queue? Guessing that's some sort of Taylor Swift lyric that they're doing a play on there. 8 billion people in the world, and every single one of them is ahead of me in the Taylor Swift Ticketmaster queue, apparently. The Taylor Swift ticket presale is proof that the Hunger Games could actually happen in real life. Early tickets were going on Ticketmaster for $49 to $500, but resellers were quickly listing them for thousands. The Guardian reports that some tickets were $22,000. Wow. Swifties want it known that these resellers are not real fans, but monsters. And the biggest monster of all, Ticketmaster, which announced on Twitter on Thursday, quote, due to extraordinarily high demands on ticketing systems and insufficient remaining ticket inventory to meet the demand, tomorrow's public on sale for Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour, has been canceled, breaking the hearts of Swifties everywhere. Ticketmaster's swift meltdown has led to speculation on the nature of the ticketing giant, with many people, including Representative AOC, suggesting that this could be the thing that radicalizes Swifties against monopolies. Quote, daily reminder that Ticketmaster is a monopoly. Its merger with Live Nation should never have been approved, and they need to be reined in. Break them up, AOC tweeted. Meanwhile, Tennessee's Attorney General announced on Wednesday that his office was launching an investigation into Ticketmaster's handling of the presale. The legal backlash reached new heights on Friday when the New York Times reported that the Justice Department is also investigating Live Nation for abusing its power over the music industry. While I would like to believe that Swiftie Nation is powerful enough to tweet a federal investigation into existence, the Times notes that it started well before this particular fiasco as part of the Biden administration's antitrust efforts. Okay, so Taylor Swift responded. Here's some of what she said. Well, it goes without saying that I'm extremely protective of my fans. We've been doing this for decades together, and over the years, I've brought so many elements of my career in-house. I've done this specifically to improve the quality of my fans' experience by doing it myself with my team who care as much about my fans as I do. It's really difficult for me to trust an outside entity with these relationships and loyalties, and excruciating for me to just watch mistakes happen with no recourse. There are a multitude of reasons why people had such a hard time trying to get tickets, and I'm trying to figure out how this situation can be improved moving forward. So she goes on there. She does not announce, her own lawsuit against Ticketmaster. Some people were, hoping that she would do that. And she says, look, we warned them over and over, like, hey man, this is going to be, you're going to get a lot of traffic. Are you sure you can handle it? And they had assured her, like, yeah, no, we're going to be able to handle it. So we actually have personal experience with this as well. I should let you guys know. So you know that Breaking Points has done a number of live shows. I was at the one in Atlanta, Georgia. By the way, there's some coming up. There's one coming up in New York. I think it's December 6th, but don't quote me on that. And then there's one coming up in Boston as well. I will be at the one in New York and the one in Boston. So definitely go. If you want to come see your boy, check it out. Go grab some tickets. I will be there. So, but we know so what happens is all of the venues basically solely work with Ticketmaster. So any artist, it doesn't matter what field you're in, doesn't matter what kind of commentary or comedy or acting or whatever you do, doesn't matter. Whatever venue where you're going to have some sort of a live show, they say to you, we only work with Ticketmaster. And so, because Live Nation owns all of them, Live Nation and Ticketmaster are the same company, basically. And so they take, a colossal cut of the money and they jack up the prices. And basically they make doing this the right way fucking impossible. And so, and they also, as, they pointed out in that video as well, what they do is they want people like scalpers to buy up the tickets and resell them because then they could do double processing fees. So I have no problem with like people abusing the system. They encourage the abuse of the system, right? So it's just a terrible fucking company. And it's awesome that the Biden administration is now investigating them. For the first time in my lifetime, yet again, you actually have an administration that's committed to cracking down on monopolies, which is a wonderful thing. And I would love it if all these Swifties hop on board with some good politics now. This enters them into the game and gets them following stuff and gets them engaged. Because everything is political. Even if you say, I'm kind of not political, whatever. No, everything is political, and it'll affect you eventually. And it seems like some people are just realizing that now. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.